Alright guys, just a quick tutorial here to get this one working. I'm in Japan, so I don't have the great mics or whatnot, but here we go. This is the final result. So this is a real problem in 3D, and I'm really glad that I've finally figured out how to do this one. So basically we want to have twists going through the shoulder. So this is a clavicle, elbow, and the hand down here, and we want to have these are the joints here. We want to have the twists come and get sort of distributed through these joints so that we don't get any pinching coming in on the model. And this is a big problem in 3D, and this is the end solution. So if we just have the regular FK chain here, this would be the one that would be controlled by your IK and FK if you had that sort of a setup, or it could just be a simple FK setup. The shoulder joint here, if you rotate it around, you'll see that it sort of twists and does different things, and you can see how those bones are twisting. And this is the no flip setup, and what I mean by that is that when you come across here, oftentimes what you'll do is you'll find that you get a lot of flipping and issues that happen due to gimbal wigging out, and you can even see that the rotate X here is going really spastic here at 519, and that's not an accurate number for what's actually happening in the twist here, so we've got to do this in a bit of a different way. There's also a control here at the end that I've just added to sort of like give you that starting point on how much the starting point twist is, but generally speaking you can pretty much leave this as is. You should be able to leave it as is without touching that control. And this is the non-flip setup, so you can sort of see that it's not flipping in those points, and we can come all the way down as well and not flip that, and if you need a slight adjustment we can slightly adjust that way. So now I'll show you how it works. Alright, so here we have the starting point of this setup, and I'm going to explain a few things before I get started here in the details, because I've set it all up and pre-made it a little bit before, just to make things a little bit faster. So the first thing I want to show you guys here is that I've got 3 chains. One is just a regular FK chain, and that would be the one that would be switching between the IK and the FK driving arms if you had that set up. But in this case we're just doing a full FK setup, so there we go, is our simple joint chain. Now you need to set up that joint chain correctly with all your local rotation axes correctly, having the X pointing to the next joint and all that sort of stuff. So go over the joint section and make sure you understand how to create joints properly, because that's quite important. Now what we do then is, and I can sort of hide some of these other layers, so that's just this, that's all that is, that first joint chain. Now we'll take that off. The next one I'm going to do is the no roll setup. So this is just a simple joint that we have so that we know that it's not rolling. So we want this shoulder joint just not to twist at all when the shoulder moves, and we're going to set this up with a simple IK chain. So that's there. We create that just by duplicating the shoulder and deleting the hand joint, and then just rename it as shoulder no roll, elbow no roll. Okay, so we'll take that one off. Now the last part is the twist, and I'm going to take the polygons off here. That's just again with the shoulder, and what we can do to create the twist joints is a nice little trick. Is you sort of find out this on the shoulder no roll elbow, you can see how long that is, so we can go copy that, and depending on how many joints you have, like if you have 4 joints or 3 joints, you can just come in here to Google and just type that number divided by however many joints you want. And I think I started with 4, 1.854, so that's just that length of the elbow divided by 4, and you can see then in these twist joints I've just duplicated them and moved each one by that 1.854 along that joint, and that will actually match up perfectly to the regular arm. So it's pretty easy to create those extra 2 joint chains, but they will be required in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is concentrate on the no roll setup. So let's show the no roll and take off the twist arm. So I've just made these different colors so we can see them a little bit clearly. Okay, so this guy here, so he's the no roll. and that's the one that's not going to roll as we move it around. Now at the moment it's just sitting there not doing anything. So I'm going to hide the regular arm, and we're just going to create an IK chain here. So the first thing to do is just go into our skeleton, IK handle tool, and we're going to go rotate plane solver, make sure it's on that because we're going to be requiring the pole vector, and we click on one joint and second joint, that's it. So this has created an IK handle. Now I'm not going to go too much into the reasons of why or how this works, just because I want to keep this tutorial short, but basically we need to have a joint chain that doesn't roll, and it uses quaternion maths, and it just so happens that IK does do that for us, especially if we switch the pole vector to 0, and you'll see the pole vector is currently pointing that way. We switch this to 0, it'll be pointing backwards, which sort of means that it won't flip until it gets right around the other side, which for a shoulder will never ever happen. So that's quite handy for us to know about. So once we've done that, that's just creating a IK handle like that. We can now parent that IK handle, because the IK handle is what that's now pointing towards. It's sort of like an aim constraint. That's all that we've really created here, is an aim constraint with the pole vector sort of pointing backwards. And once we've created that, we can now parent that to the elbow. So parent that in. So now that IK handle, it even could be just parented to shoulder. Doesn't really matter so much, but in this case, why don't we just parent to the elbow just to be safe? Okay, so now when we bring back the twist, no, sorry, not the twist, the regular arm, grab the shoulder here, we can see that this guy now moves up and down, but it's not actually inheriting any twist. So this is the joint that we're really concerned about here, and I'm just going to come in here and grab one of these cubes that I built from another scene. So unparent that, and I'm just going to parent that into the shoulder no roll, and just assign that to the no roll layer. Selected objects, and we'll just put that on polygons. So this is just a little helper object to see what's happening. So now when we select the shoulder, you'll see that we can sort of bring that up, and I'll put a little bit of a bend on this elbow too so we can see what's happening. Now when we rotate the shoulder, you can see it's rotating fine that way, it's rotating fine this way, but when we roll it, there's no roll happening through. Now the good thing about this system with the IK and the pole vector zeroing out is that when we come past here to this sort of a level, it's not flipping, which is really what we're after. So I'm just going to zero that out again, and this time just move it straight down, and you see no flipping across that angle and no flipping when we come up. So that's a really nice little trick there to use for a no flip sort of setup. Alright, so now that we've created that, we really need to create our twist joint chain. So I'm just going to like momentarily switch off that area and switch into the twist layer. So this twist layer, I've previously set it up, I've already placed these joints, but the only reason why I have these cubes here, they really don't do anything other than visually show us what's happening, because the joints themselves, we can't see them twisting, they're very difficult to see. So I've just parented a cube underneath each one and zeroed them out so that we can see what's happening. So before, I'm just going to switch the polygons off like that. For now, we've got our shoulder. The effect is just going to stay there because it's actually parented to the regular arm now. Okay, so let's take that regular arm off. Now what we need to do is create a different type of IK, which is slightly different, just a spline IK. Set spline IK handle tool. So go into options here, just reset it, and you really don't need any spans at all, but just to be safe, I'm just going to put in 3. So we can click once and twice, and what this will create is an IK spline IK. So if you've ever used that, that's what it does. But we're actually not using it for this bendy sort of equality. We're using it simply for the twist functionality that's in here. So if you create this, there is a twist control on a spline IK that distributes the twist down there. So we'll get into a bit more detail in a second. Now, once we've created that setup here, what we need to do is to really parent in that curve to the shoulder. So once that's, because wherever that curve goes, those joints will go. So we'll parent in that curve to the shoulder joint of the actual thing, and now when we rotate our shoulder, we'll see that that whole chain moves with it. But at the moment we've got no twist happening whatsoever. In fact, nothing will twist, and we can see this clearly when I put on the polygons, is that it's sort of like what was happening before. There's twist, and in fact we'll get a bit of a flipping, I believe, in some places. Yeah, you can sort of see that flipping around a bit. But we actually want this to twist through the arm, and at the moment it's not twisting at all, so we've got to do that. So I'm just going to zero out the control arm. And what we need to do is get the twist going here. Now, there is an attribute on the IK, and I'm going to call this the spline IK just so it doesn't get confusing, because we have two IK chains in here now. There is a twist control here, which we can do that manually, but we need to automatically set this up so that it automatically twists. We don't want to be coming in here as animators and constantly tweaking this value. So what we're going to be using is not that value, but we're actually going to come into here to the advanced twist controls, which can be found if you've got everything sort of closed under IK solver attributes. So if you open up that part of the spline IK solver and come into advanced, it will be off by default. So what we want to do is we actually want to switch this on, and we're going to be using the advanced controls to navigate twist. And without going into too much detail, again I want to keep this tutorial quite short, is that what we want to do is we want to use the up vector angle of the shoulder no roll and compare it against the shoulder that's actually rolling, and that will give us the difference, the starting point and the ending point of our twists. So what we're going to be using is, we've got a couple of tabs here, a couple of drop down lists, is we want to go to object up start and end, or object rotation up start and end, sorry. It's that one there, object rotation up start and end. And what we'll do now is we need to create the right values. So the first one is the one that's not rolling. That's what we want this end to be doing, not rolling. And then that end we need to roll. So we're going to be using the shoulder in both cases. First one is a shoulder no roll. So just copy, go back to our spline IK and paste it into there. Now the second world up object is the end twist that we want down here, and that's going to be the one that's twisting properly. And we don't use the elbow, we actually just use the shoulder, because that'll give us a nice, the shoulders will be twisting because we're going to be twisting it. So we can just copy and paste that one into the second one here. And that's pretty much it. That's the setup, almost pretty much fully done. So let's just see how that works. I've only just built this, so let's see how it's working. You sort of see the twist going through there, and we come through around out here, and we've got the twist nicely happening around there as well. Let's go back, and there's no flipping happening anywhere. As you can see, we can go across 0, and it's not twisting very much at all. There is a little bit of twist happening here, but that's all just naturally, normally what's happening. You can sort of see it twisting slightly. That's just because I've built it on this angle down here, this sort of 45-degree angle, which is a common way that I like to rig. Now, if you do want to sort of twist that, that will probably look pretty natural in the shoulder still. But if you do want to adjust that twist, I'll show you how to do that. It's the last step here. Okay, so now we want to just have a little bit of control over that thing. And at the moment, the shoulder itself, the shoulder no roll, is actually controlled by the IK handle. It's a bit hard to see here, but that shoulder no roll is actually controlled by this IK handle tool. So what we want to do is we actually want to create a little controller here that just points out that we can move around. Now I'm going to do this with a script, but basically all you have to do is build a little control, curve control, and then parent it to the shoulder and zero it out. That's it. And you'll have this same control. But I'm going to use a nice little tool which is in the rigging toolkit, which is a nice little toolkit that you can download for about $30 on high end. Go into controls, and I'm going to make controls here, and it's got a few different options, and I'm just going to select the shoulder no roll and actually create a pin there, and that will automatically, because I had that selected and the script is pretty smart, it creates a little pin that's zeroed out at that shoulder with a nice little offset control too. And I'm just going to parent that pin really directly to the shoulder no roll. And that will just be our adjustment for it, and it should be zeroed out because it's been placed in the right spot, so delete that there. So all I've done is created a curve control that's completely zeroed, that is at the shoulder no roll. Now I don't have that visible at the moment, so you might want to constrain this if you're hiding things and things like that. But just for this example, I'm just going to parent it in, and we can now roll that. So instead of using, I'm not going to rename this even, it's called control no roll 1. We could just take that no roll off that one. It should be a unique name. Now we're going to use this instead of the no roll, so we're just sort of like having a little additive effect here. And we can come back down onto the spline IK here, come into the attribute editor. Instead of using the shoulder no roll, we'll just paste on the control no roll. Now what you'll see is that will now affect that guy there. I've just still got this other cube showing, so I'm just hiding the cube under the no roll setup here. You can see what's happening there. It's now following, and this is it. This is the setup. So we really don't sort of tweak anything unless we want to get that last guy sort of like and tweak him into the position that we want. So it's really up to you as to what you want to do with that. But that's a pretty cool setup. That's everything completed. So I hope that's a pretty fast overview, but I hope you get your head around that, and you'll now be able to create setups with this no roll. Now if you had a ribbon rig or something that's quite cartoony on top of this, it can get a little bit more complicated, but basically now we have our roll position. So if you did have a sort of a spliny, cartoony rig on top of this, you would probably parent the joints to each of these sort of chains in order to get that roll to happen. So it gets a little bit more complicated if you want to layer it up that way, but just for a straight arm that's not squash and stretchable, this is a really good way to go.